Hi, my name is Brenna, and today we'll look at virtual reality in education. Virtual reality is defined as an interactive, computer-generated experience taking place within a simulated environment. The virtual reality industry mainly provided VR devices for medical, flight simulation, automobile industry design, and military training purposes. But the popularity of VR has risen drastically in the 21st century with development of new gaming devices. But how does this impact education today? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the beginnings of virtual reality. The exact origins of virtual reality are arguable. However, in the 1950s, a man by the name of Martin Heilig created a play titled The Experience Theater, in which all five senses were incorporated in one manner or another. In 1962, he then created the Sensorama, that would play 5 short films on the built-in screen while including the 5 senses. As quoted by Heilig, the spectator is given a complete sensation of reality, i.e., moving, three-dimensional images, which may be in color, with 100% peripheral vision, binaural sounds, scents, and air breezes. Ivan Sutherland then created one of the first head-mounted VR devices, aptly named the Sword of Damocles. It was quite primitive in terms of visual realism and user interface. The device itself was too heavy to be worn alone, so it was eventually mounted to the ceiling by sets of cables. In 1978, David M. created the Aspen Movie Map while working in NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The map was a visual tour of the streets of Aspen during one of 3 available seasons, such as winter, spring, or summer. This was created within MIT. In 1979, Eric Howlett created a large expanse, extra perspective optical system, or otherwise known as the LEEP. This device allowed the wearer to believe as if they were in space itself. This setup was the basis for all VR headsets in the future. Let's go ahead and look at early VR and video games, which set the foundation for VR learning. In 1991, Sega created their first VR headset primarily for use with arcade-style games in their console at the time, the Mega Drive. That same year, Virtuality launched and was quickly one of the most mass-produced systems throughout several countries. There was even a dedicated arcade for the VR Entertainment Center. The systems are extremely costly at a price point of $73,000. This set was one of the first immersive experiences, which included exoskeleton gloves. Also in 1991, the Electronic Visualization Laboratory created their first immersive room experience. This system allowed them to see their own bodies in relation to others in the room. Originally, it was created to assist with the testing of the Mars rover. In 1992, Nicole Stender created a real-time, interactive, and immersive movie where the watcher facilitates interaction with a data glove and goggles. Later that year, the Air Force's Armstrong Labs created a full upper body exoskeleton enabling the user to move in mixed reality. The user is able to experience augmented reality enabling sight, sound, and touch. Sega created the SR V1 motion simulator, attraction-based in an arcade. However, this was incorrectly named as it did not present virtual reality. Instead, it showed panoramic photos. Now, let's bring VR into the 21st century. In 2007, Google debuted their first Street View of their map service. A few years later, they include a stereoscopic 3D mode. The Oculus Rift was built as a prototype in 2010, only had a 90-degree field of vision. In 2012, the system was upgraded and debuted at a gaming convention. As of 2014, the Oculus VR was purchased by Facebook. In 2014, Sony announced their secret project, dubbed Project Morpheus, which turned out to be their PlayStation VR. Google released their own stereoscopic viewer made out of actual cardboard in which the user would assemble themselves. This utilized users' cell phones as the main screen with specialized videos. By 2016, there were 230 companies and counting that had launched VR-type applications or products. Some larger companies even had their own VR and AR groups dedicated to this work. Let's take a look at electronics in education. The proper effects of electronics in education have been under debate for some time. Some have found that electronics can have a beneficial effect on education, while others believe it can have no effect, if not a negative effect. Most data provided has been quoted as pretty weak. Telling a teacher to change their teaching style may sound controversial or aggressive, but with incorporating technology into education, the teacher must change their role from information dispenser to facilitator. The best way to have a teacher involved is to circulate through the classroom as the students work to assist with any questions or difficulties they may experience. The students' motivation appears to be heightened because they are allowed to make their own choices about what they plan to learn and how they plan to accomplish it. Students' need for immediate feedback is satisfied when learning on a computer, as responses are quick. Students have been known to succeed quicker through electronic learning after being quickly burnt out from pen and paper work. Students' confidence and motivation to succeed then increases. It's quite evident that the use of technology is here to stay, especially with how young children are using technology efficiently. Students hone in on their ability to manage computers both in and out of the classroom, making them overall more confident. This prepares them for future careers surrounding computers when their confidence allows them to effectively learn additional tasks with ease. Let's take a look at virtual learning in young education. Almost all younger education levels learn from experience. Preschool-aged or younger children learn to speak by real-world valuable experiences, such as listening to their parents speak to them or read them a book. Teachers are using the same ability, but incorporating virtual reality. Using the VR, the teacher can provide a fully immersive experience. This way, students can learn proper sentence structure. A VR environment can be especially beneficial for students that may not know what to write. While taking a preschool or elementary class to a zoo for a field trip can be an extremely educational trip, it's also risky and expensive. But what happens after the memories have disappeared? What would the difference be if the students can see that animal in their natural habitat, or even walk by its side? A VR environment can create real-life context to learning. One of the greatest experiences as a teacher is being able to meet and interact with students from all backgrounds. However, that may negatively impact the student's learning. What if a student has never had the experience of going to the zoo or into a city? Having a VR world, so to speak, can help all students be brought to the same level. It also allows teachers to safely explore other worlds, such as Mars or space. A company by the name of Vinci Education created a digital preschool, complete with homeroom teachers. This may be a costly service, but also includes learning materials, activity guides, and analytics for the students' work. The company will deliver lessons, activities, and songs directly to you with an average duration of 30 minutes. If a parent wishes to upgrade, they can pay additionally for 90-minute sessions with the teacher directly. Virtual learning in secondary education. As learning progresses into secondary education or middle school, it becomes increasingly harder to maintain their attention. The students tend to be focused on their cell phones or even each other. Students can easily become disengaged and harm their own learning. The world of VR learning is in its very early stages, but has untold and untapped potential. Being able to include a new form of technology into learning of one of the most tech-savvy generations would hands down provide them new inspiration. Having the buzz and enthusiasm from students is enough to change the learning game for the better. Students in secondary education are extremely moldable and are learning new things every day. One of these things is empathy. The best and more accurate way to teach this is through real-life experiences. Children can visit communities at their time of crisis to assist with the development of empathy. Although day-to-day real-life experiences are nearly impossible to recreate. This is where VR comes into play. The students are able to have the same experiences and learn the best ways and to more accurately express empathy. Using VR can immerse them in other cultures or experiences, such as changing of the guards in Britain or visiting the Amazon rainforest. Students are able to hear native languages, not only spoken, but by body language as well. Students can even travel back in time with the assistance of virtual recreations of historical events. Students can walk the streets of historical England or visit the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So what about virtual learning for adult and continued education? Vocational training will soon be impacted heavily by the possibility of VR integration. For example, in a marine biologist schooling, VR would allow the students to walk through the depths of the ocean where they wouldn't necessarily be able to, due to physical and scientific limitations. For adult learners, they may have difficulties finding a job due to not having any on-the-job experience. Utilizing a VR world can allow them to have such experience in a workplace. Albeit it's a digital world, students are still able to learn proper behavior and language necessary to succeed. Students can also visit and attempt different jobs before deciding what they wish to fully participate in. Some adults may struggle with social and/or learning anxiety, which can deter them from moving on with their lives. By allowing them to walk through virtual situations, so they can have adequate experiences for the future. In addition, adults can learn real-life empathy so they can better assist with customers. As adults enter the workforce, one of their biggest struggles is public speaking. This can negatively impact future job prospects, especially during their first interviews. Several young men and women have not had the ability to interview prior, so they don't have the concept of what are considered appropriate answers. This may make or break them entering the adult world. Colleges have started incorporating VR learning, similar to simulated career fairs, into continued education. Let's walk through the benefits of VR learning as a whole. One of the more difficult things to teach children at any age is the concept of context. Context can differ largely on your surroundings and who, what, or where you're interacting with. Context can be taught, however, it can easily be forgotten by students. Incorporating VR can improve retention drastically because the students have the ability to practice and have hands-on experience. Repetition is easier when it's being done digitally, whereas repeating with a live person can be tiresome. In most schools, there tends to be a separate classroom for students that may struggle with learning disabilities or special needs. By having them in another classroom, they may feel disconnected or unwanted. You're able to create a more inclusive environment by having a VR environment that can allow them to remain in the classroom, feel included, while also learning the same way as every other child. Students are always drawn to the newest and fanciest tech devices. Including this in the classroom increases their drive to learn and their engagement within the lessons. There are a significant number of risks and safety concerns when traveling with anyone, let alone children or adults, of your responsibility. In addition, medical students have the ability to practice procedures without potentially harming their patients. This would overall lower costs for employers and educators as their risks are significantly lower. Using VR systems allows students to see a what-if world. This has migrated its way into the lives of neurologists. These specialists are starting to use virtual reality in the world of rehabilitation and the therapeutic benefit of virtual bodies. Research has been done with stroke victims, where they're able to use their arms and legs after previously unable to, because they are able to experience functioning limbs within a virtual situation. So what benefit does this have to teachers? Teachers can have the ability to include student photos into lesson plans. If a student happens to take a 360-degree photo, the teacher can then upload it to the VR software and create a visual duplicate for other students to walk through. The students can also create their own worlds to then share with the class. Students can share their worlds, whether it's a real experience or a manufactured environment. Children are then more curious to explore other worlds that have only previously been described in words. An increased concern by teachers is the ability to cater to the different and overwhelming learning styles. Almost all children or adults learn differently and expect that they be taught that way. Virtual learning allows the teacher to change the lesson plan in a second without taking significant time out of their already busy schedules. With using digital worlds, the overall training costs are lower. The system is able to compile learning data such as test scores or learned information. The equipment has a longevity that prevents it from having to be replaced constantly. Costs are reduced, and by a reduction in logistics. For example, if firefighters are learning, it's more cost-effective to only set one fire versus setting fires constantly to have experience. They can practice through VR and potentially only set one fire as if for a final exam. And for final review, let's take a look at virtual learning in the workplace. As mentioned before, VR has been pioneering in the healthcare field. This is where it seems to be the most utilized for the safety and well-being of patients and providers. Colleges are including virtual reality labs instead of a cadaver lab, so students can learn digitally. Students can learn surgical procedures on a digital model where those specific surgeries may not always be available. This is most common in smaller hospitals where surgeries might be hard to come by, or even in large hospitals where there are several surgical students but only one procedure available. In the event that there may be a peculiar surgical concern involving a complicated anatomy, a duplicate anatomy can be created via VR so the students are able to practice more than once without harming the patient. In almost any medical teaching, the students practice on advanced dolls that can cost up to $750,000 per doll, whereas the VR learning systems cost around $700 for the headsets and software. The VR software can be updated easily with just a computer, whereas the dolls could have to outright be replaced if they need to be updated. Many specialty companies are using VR training centralized around highly specific equipment. By doing this, they are also attracting a younger crowd of operators. This is beneficial for the companies as they are consistently losing baby boomers as they start retirement. The overall cost of training is cut down as users are working with VR tend to be learning quicker. This cuts down time spent with the head trainer or teacher. In a professional workplace, there are several times in which there are trainings that must be attended and may require travel. By utilizing VR, the company is saving time and money by not having to pay for airline or hotel costs. This also helps companies that may not have an internal training department and must pay for external trainers to come in.